Hello and welcome back to my painting channel, and today we are painting a Blood Bowl star player called Rumbelow Sheepskin. But this is not an official miniature, this is a print from a company called Vortice Miniatures. So this one isn't actually called the same official name, this guy has a different name. I'll put the link in the description below, so if you guys want to check this miniature out or pick it up, you can go there and find it. Because we're a star player, we're going to paint this one in a really cool sort of bright sort of colour scheme. And we're going to start off with like a kind of golden fleece type of thing. So we're going to paint the ram, or the sheep, completely gold. So he's going to be like the golden fleece and everything like that from the old ancient legends. So for this I'm starting with Citadel Retributor armour, and I'm just covering the whole ram in that colour, as you see, so he's nice and shiny. Then I'm going to go across and we're going to do the horns, the teeth. There's a little bit of dribble on the side of our star player's cheek as well. So we're just going to go around and do all like the sort of cream colours. And for this we're doing flayed one flesh. So we're going to use that as the base. So just across the hooves, as you see the teeth just in here on the ram as well. It's a little bit of a fiddly little part this, so just take your time when you're doing this bit. It should be easy enough. The model is full of detail and full of character. Like I say, it's an unofficial miniature, but it's a really cool miniature. So if you're looking for a star player with something with a little bit of interest and a little bit of bite, this one is definitely worth a look. So I'm just going to paint the little blanket, the little sheet that's going across, because he hasn't quite got a saddle with a Citadel Dryad bark. And I'm also going to paint his little nose as well. I can't forget his little nose. The same colour, so I've got a little bit of Dryad bark here on the ram. From there I'm going to move on to do the skin tones, and with the skin I'm just going to go with a Citadel Kislev flesh. If you followed some of my other videos, then you'll see I like to use a few different types of skin tones, but for this one we're going to go for bright nice colours. So it's always good to base with Kislev flesh to start with, because when we tone down and then tone up, it ends up being a nice sharp bright colour pop. So that's perfect, that's exactly what we want when I can talk. So yeah, just going across all of this with Kislev flesh, and then we'll shade it down a little bit later. Not forgetting his little halfling belly in here as well. And there we go. I'm just speeding up little bits of this video just so that you can follow along without having to sit there and watch me paint for hours and hours on end. So his hair we're going to do in a Vortice dwarf skin. You could use a Jakiro orange if you're using Citadel, that would do the same job. And this is just for us to be able to build up a really nice bright orange sort of fiery colour hair. Again, just to make the miniature pop. With him being a star player, we want people to notice this character on the table, and we want people when you're playing to see where your star player is. And also if you put him in display, you kind of want him to pop, you want him to look really awesome. So for that we're using a nice orange colour, and this is just the base with dwarf skin at the moment. So for his trousers, or his shorts rather, I'm using a Vallejo US Olive Drab. This is from the model colour range of Vallejo, so this one normally dries down with like a really nice matte effect to it, so you don't need to do too much. This is a lovely colour for greens. It's a really good in-between green. It is exactly as it says, it is a little bit drab, so it's not too over the top, it's not too bright. So in other words, what we get in is a nice effect on the shorts, but without detracting from the gold or the orange of the hair and things like that. Those are going to be our focus points. I'm also going to paint his vest in a Citadel Avalanche Sunset, so I'm painting this yellow. Now when it comes to painting yellow, Avalanche Sunset is one of the best paints around to do so. There's a lot of different yellows on the market, but not many cover as well as Avalanche Sunset that I have found. I have tried so many different yellows, and this is the perfect yellow for base coats, because you can always build the colour back up from it, but it has a good coverage to begin with, which a lot of yellows tend to be quite thin. So if you paint in yellow, Avalanche Sunset is a really good base coat, so that's the one that I would recommend starting with. So going back to the Dryad bark, but this time on our star, not on our goat, and I'm just going to paint his gloves and the straps, because he's got a few straps around his shoulder and around his knees, just holding the armoured plates on. So I'm just going to go back and paint those bits in, just being very careful now not to touch the skin and things like that. I'm going to make this model as easy as possible by applying pretty much only really one wash to it, which seems like cheating, but it makes it much easier to manage, and doesn't affect the end results. The end results are going to be awesome, I promise. So once we've done that, I'm just going to paint up the metal parts. So I'm doing these in a silver, again nice and bright, trying to make certain elements of this miniature pop. People notice that this is a star player, that he's nice and bright. So I'm going with the Army Painter Plate Mail Metal. It's one of my favourite metal colours because it's nice and bright, and it has really good coverage on this one as well. This is very easy to apply to your miniatures. So I'm just painting his little pot up here as well, his little soup bowl, you know. Just covering that and the armor plates in this silver. So once we've done the silver, we're going back to the Citadel Flayed One Flesh, and this time we're just going to catch the little bits of white on this. So he's got a little cross hatch of like lace just holding his vest together just across the top here. He also has a nice little bit of drool going up the side of his face, which is a very attractive image. And also he's got a couple of teeth just there as well, which I'm just going to try to catch a little bit there. Just like so. So you can take your time and be as careful as you like with that sort of stage. Now once we're done with that, as I said, I'm going to apply just a single wash, and for this I'm using an Army Painter Soft Tone. Soft Tone is a very lightweight brown, so it ties in colours like the green that we've used, the yellow and the orange. It also sits nicely on top of the gold and the creams as well, so this is a really sort of like cheating easy way of painting, like a single wash on one model. Because it'll tie all those colours together, it'll fix any sort of little bits that we've missed and things like that, sort of just between the skin and the shorts and bits. So it's perfect. It's a really good single use wash. Now if you wanted to just make him sort of tabletop ready, you could leave it there. Of course, if you watch my videos, you'll know that I like to build the colours back up, and we'll highlight and keep going, and we'll build him back up from there. So we're going now back to our original flesh tone, and we're just using that Kislev flesh to build the face back up, and the belly and the arms and the feet. So we're going to take our time, just going to paint up the areas where the flesh is prominent, but while leaving that shade in the darker recessed staging, just in between all of the cracks and the grooves, so that creates that element and that illusion of depth on your miniature then. So painting skin is one of my favourite things. It's such a rewarding part of a miniature, because when you paint and then you put your shade on, you get to see all of the details, and as you start to build the colours back up and the lights back up, it gives your miniature so much more depth. It's really nice. Now I applied just a little bit too much shade onto the goat, so I'm just building up a little bit more of the Retributor armor by dry brushing a little bit back over the top, just so that the shade is only really sitting in the recess points rather than covering too much behind the back legs here and things like that. So back with our skin then, we're going with the Kislev flesh, but we've mixed in now Flayed One Flesh into the mixture. So we're just using a half and half, so a 50-50 split, nice and easy, and we're just going to use this then to build that colour back up again. So this is now becoming sort of like the highlight area, and you can highlight further again should you want to, but I think this should be about enough for this particular miniature. So again, what I'm doing is I'm just going back over, but this time I'm not covering all of the areas that I covered previously. With this being a thinned down mixture, what you can do is you can build those layers slowly. That means you don't have to cover where the Kislev flesh is. As you see, you can just catch it on areas where you would want the highlights to be, and again that creates that depth then. So as you'll see, I'm just trying to go across the shoulders, across the muscle, across the arm, across the cheekbones, the nose, those sorts of things. So from there then, we're going to use a highlight to the Flayed One Flesh. So we're going to highlight those creamy areas now by using a Vallejo Elfic Flesh. Elfic Flesh is a really nice bright sort of cream. It's not quite white. So this goes perfectly over the top of Flayed One Flesh. So what we're doing is we're just going to cover a little bit of that drool, so we're going to highlight that drool. Just going to highlight his teeth as well on the goat, and of course the hooves as well. We're going to highlight those. But the one that we're going to pay the most attention to, we're really going to pay attention to the horns. And again, because this is a really prominent feature on the miniature, what we're going to do is we're just going to use very, very straight lines with a very, very thin layer brush. So we're using a very, very, very thin layer of paint, as you see. I'm just going to leave gaps between like this, so that this will create the ridges on the horns, and that'll give the miniature way more depth. It'll be a lot more pleasing on the eye, it'll look amazing on your display, and it will look really good on the table as well. So when you play in, people are going to notice your miniature, they're going to notice your star player, he's going to stand out a lot. So this is very fiddly, can take a little bit of time to get used to, but as you see, I'm just trying to keep the brush steady. I'm just trying to keep it going in straight lines just down the horns like so. I'm just trying to apply little bits of the paint at a time. There's no need to go rushing, you don't need to put a big blob of paint on. Take your time and run that brush across nice and smooth, see? So once you've done the horns, I'm just moving on to the leathery part, so bits of the gloves and the little blanket that he's got across the goat there. And for this I'm using a Vortice Earth, so this is just Earth is called. So this is a nice easy one. There's a few different earth tones out there, but this one is just the Earth it's called. So it's not flat earth or anything like that, because those are shades higher. This one is just Earth, and it's nice and plain. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to paint this back over the gloves, and in a nice thin coat, this will allow you to see a little bit of that darker tone underneath as well. And just to tie it in, I'm just going to apply a little bit of strong tone onto those gloves as well. And the reason for that is the strong tone is going to sit in the recessed areas between the knuckles and things, so it's just going to add a little bit more depth to it, because that earth has taken a little bit of the depth away from those gloves. But it's as simple as that. I'm not going to do any more to the gloves. Once the strong tone is on those gloves, that'll be enough to give the leathers a little bit of depth and make them look really good. So from there, I'm just going to build up the other two colours then, which was the shorts and the vest. I'm going to start with the vest, so I'm going back to the Avalon Sunset. What I'm doing, I'm just going to follow the motion of his vest. So as you see, his vest is going from the top corner down to the bottom corner. So I'm just using those really light, thin brush strokes again, leaving little gaps here and there so that it builds that depth and builds the illusion of those creases and follows the creases along the miniature, and creating a little bit more motion and movement in the miniature as well, like so. See, we're trying to leave a few little gaps there just so that it creates the depth on your miniature then. There we go, just like so. So nice and quick and easy, you know, you don't have to be extremely precious over these stages. And the same I'm doing with the olive drab, so just across the shorts as well, as you see, just starting across with the top here. This bit can be a little bit fiddly because the shorts do sort of tuck in by the goat, so just be a little bit careful when you go in into some of the darker patches, or into some of the harder to reach patches. Just try to be a little bit careful as you're doing it. The military colours from the Vortice, I have to say, are absolutely gorgeous colours. So like this US drab, they also do a Russian uniform colour as well. They are really, really stunning colours. They're so easy to use, and they have such an amazing effect on your miniatures. So like I said, we're going to make this guy have really, really nice bright orange hair to make him stand out. So for this I'm using a Vortice bright orange. I'm dry brushing this, so you could use a Citadel alternative should you want. I know they do a lot of good dry brush colours anyway, so if you wanted to do that, then that's completely up to you. And then I'm just using the Avalon Sunset again, but this time I'm highlighting, so I'm going in the same direction as you see. The only difference this time is, again, if you've seen any of my other videos, you'll see that I do use a little bit of inks. I've just put a small dropper of titanium white ink into the mix, just so that it creates a little bit of a highlight colour. Now, it will look like it's applying lighter than it dries, so when this dries, it won't look as light, which is great, but it does take a little bit longer to dry because it's an ink. Inks do dry slower. So once we've done that, we're going to do the same thing with the US olive drab. and I'm using the olive drab with a tiny dropper of titanium white from Dalaroni. Again, if you've seen any of my other videos, you'd know that I use this sort of technique when I'm painting, just to create that slight highlight. And again, I'm using those quick, straight, thin flick brush strokes. Very, very, very thin light. Doesn't matter if you leave some of those brush strokes and you leave some of the gaps, because that's creating the folds, that's creating a little bit more depth into your miniature. And that should be about it. It's as easy as that. You don't need to go too extreme, you don't need to make it look too over the top, you don't need to do too much. That is table ready, that is a really good looking miniature. We've spent a bit of time on the horns, we've got him looking great. You guys will have to let me know what you think of it, if you think it's a great sculpt, if you think it's a great mould, and what you think of the paint job as well. As always, my friends, thank you very, very much for tuning in and watching, and take care.